Guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, going to go over a story titled Nuclear Ghosting Revenge on Cheating Fiancee. And guys, this whole story is about a young guy, early to mid-20s I'd say, who met his girlfriend in college, and it was the whole romantic love at first sight type of scenario, and she was all great and beautiful and sexy, and they had this amazing relationship in college. They had a great group of friends they hung out with, they traveled the world together and all this shit. And eventually he proposes, and of course she says yes, and he thought everything was great. And lo and behold, as they both embarked in their careers, he finds out that she is cheating on him. Okay, and he's destroyed, as you can imagine. Oh, and by the way, this guy, not only was their relationship really good with the two of them, but also things were great with the families. His family loved her family loved him, or shall I say, her mom loved him. And he finds out about all this, and it rips his heart out, and he tries to actually fix the situation, but that obviously didn't work. So he then accepts the fact of reality and starts plotting his exit strategy, and also his revenge, and getting even with her. And in the process, not planning this, ultimately he ends up with the ultimate revenge, in my opinion, by banging her mom. No joke. Now, I get some of you guys may be thinking, oh, this sounds like a bunch of crap. This sounds like BS, made up story. But that didn't stop you guys from clicking on the video just to see, because you were curious. And I kind of thought that too when I clicked the thing. And nevertheless, guys, whatever that may be, it is sure as hell entertaining. So I'm going to get into this. You're going to see what I'm talking about here. Starts off. It has obviously been several years since the incident, and I literally have never told anyone in my life about this. Tonight, I have some good wine to drink and figure I'll let my fingers do the talking. I thought I had met the perfect woman. We met in the last year of college. We met at a party and hit it up instantly. She was a beautiful blonde with sun-kissed skin, and she could have been a model. Think Kate Upton type figure. She was kind, compassionate, sympathetic, good listener, and had an active life with many friends. She liked my friends, and it was awesome over the 3 years we knew each other and how our friend groups merged. Several of our friends began dating each other. It was some of the best times of my life. I was on for my post-grad in finance, and she had a degree in contractual law. This is just to say we ended up being successful in our own rights. But I'm no slouch in the looks department either. I'm 5'11", 190 pounds, and like the gym. I wasn't a super athlete, but let's just say I was built. But I was and am very shy and didn't have a lot of prior relationships prior to meeting her. So in other words, he probably saw her as the prize and probably treated her accordingly. So let's keep that in mind as to what's going to happen down the road when you treat a woman like that or act in a way that you are, that she is better than you. Keep that in mind. The first evening we met, we were smitten. First night we talked all night. Then went to texting/phone calls daily, then dates weekly. Then after a year, when I started working with my new job, she moved in. I loved her family, and her family loved me. Mostly her mother, as her father was standoffish, as he was to everyone. It was a whirlwind romance. And remember that part about the mother loved him, and the father didn't, and it was a whirlwind romance between her mother and father. Just keep that in mind. After 2.5 blissful years of overseas vacations, hiking trips, and luxury vacations, I proposed to her. She said yes. I was over the moon. She was doing all the planning for the wedding. We were talking about our futures together, buying a house, children, and the family trips we were going to take together, and such things like that. So far, sound good. Sounds great. Sounds like the big honeymoon period lasted longer than you think. First few years, everything's cool, at least he thought. You never know what's going on behind the scenes. But everything sounds really good. Then it happened. One evening, after we both got home to our apartment, she was a little distant. I think I noticed it right away, as we were always very affectionate towards each other. This would only happen about once a week for the first month. And he says, after the proposal. Then it was more frequent. I would have been none the wiser, except that I used to listen to a lot of Reddit stories on YouTube, so I waited and observed. Those bouts of ignoring me would only last a couple of hours, and then she'd be right back to normal. But after 6 months, and he says wedding in 1 year, she was like that almost every night. Gee, what could be going on? He proposed. Everything's great for years, too, he thinks. He proposes to her, and within a short period of time, she's starting to act weird. What could be going on here? Sex was still great. Relationship with her parents still great. But over Thanksgiving at her parents' home in Louisville, Kentucky, she was standoffish towards me in front of her mother. Now, her mother was a very observant woman. She pulled her daughter aside to talk to her, and I could hear them arguing. After some heated but muffled words, they returned to the rest of the family and carried on like nothing was going on. I figured I could ask her about it later, and did. She was not willing to talk about it and asked me to wait till we were home to discuss it. I agreed, as I loved her deeply and thought we could work through anything. Her mother was an older version of her. Same stunning looks, just a few grays in her long thick blonde hair. This is important later. Back home, I asked her about it, and she was unwilling to discuss it. When pressed on it for a week, she finally confessed that a guy at her work was trying to get to know her better. She wanted to be forthcoming, so she showed me her phone. As I looked through, I noticed that all the texts that would have happened during the times she was withdrawing from me were removed. There was nothing untoward in the text. But I did go to her phone settings and turned on her locator on her phone, as we shared the same phone plan. And I honestly thought it would make me see that she was not doing anything wrong. Well, he's about to find something very interesting going on. And notice how he said that when she showed him her phone and the text, that there were things missing, coincidentally the same times that they were fighting. Was I wrong? The second weekend after Thanksgiving, she had a company Christmas party. I had planned on going, but came down with food poisoning and had to back out. She had a girlfriend pick her up from our apartment, as they planned on drinking a lot and had a designated driver for the evening. We had planned on going out all night, so I told her to have a blast and I would see her in the morning. So he's trying to be a good boyfriend, good fiancé. I'm sick. Hey, go have a great time. Enjoy yourself. Which you think you should be able to do. Well, guess what happens next? So as I'm puking my guts out and barely able to get off the toilet for more than 30 minutes, I grabbed my phone and watched her location. First it was a restaurant, then the venue of the company party, then a bar. None of this alarmed me until I saw her phone stop in a downtown hotel. At this point, I was miserable in more ways than three. Projectile vomiting out my butt, mouth, and now my soul. I finally fell asleep due to sheer exhaustion at 2 a.m. At 7 a.m., I woke up and saw that she was still at the hotel. At noon, she finally comes home, and I'm on the mend. She loves me up, and I ask her about her previous night without mentioning anything about knowing her locations. She talks about the restaurant, the party, the bar, but then says she went to her friend's girlfriend's house to crash for the evening. First lie. This would be when the guy basically dealt with the situation right there and then. But he doesn't. And you're going to see how this continues on. For the next 3 months, she has to start working later and later, 3 to 4 days a week. This went on for 3 to 4 more months, and he knew something was going on, and he didn't question her about the hotel. Give me a break, man. As I start asking her about it, she becomes more and more defensive. I talked to her mom one evening when Fiancee didn't come home until late. I asked her mom about the Thanksgiving conversation, and she admitted to me that she thought her daughter might be stepping out of our relationship because of how she read her body language. She also said that her daughter was becoming more and more distant with her in the weekly texting conversations. Now here's something that's very questionable at this point, that it's not unusual that someone would contact, a parent of the fiancé or someone you're serious with if you have a close relationship with them. But the fact that the mother was admitting that something was up and thinking that she could be stepping out, that begs a question. But on the other hand, it sounds like the mother and daughter don't exactly get along very well, and mom likes this dude. But we'll just continue on the story here. With all this speculation that was going on in my mind, I kept it to myself. 2 weeks later after work, I ended up getting a new project at my company that was going to require me to fly to the Midwest Monday through Friday for the next 5 weeks, starting in 2 weeks. It came with an increase in salary, and as I broke the news to my fiancée, she was delighted for me. Yeah, she's delighted because more money is coming in, which she can use, and this guy's going to be gone multiple nights during the week, so she can do whatever she wants. I didn't think though that she was excited for the same reason I was. So I went online and ordered 4 motion-activated spy cameras for my apartment. I put one in the living room, entry area, one in the kitchen, one in our bedroom, and one looking down our hallway. Good God, dude. They were very small and connected to the internet via a hidden network, so they couldn't be spotted on our Wi-Fi network. I secured the cams with a password and waited. On my first week out, she had girlfriends over the first 2 nights and never worked late once. Isn't that amazing? All the other times when he's around, she's working late, but he's out of town, all of a sudden, she's coming home right on time. The 3rd night, a guy came over. I was enraged. I'm sitting there in my hotel room screaming at the monitor and called her every name in the book. Then they went all the way, first in the couch, then in our bed. She bent 4 ways for him that I didn't know were possible. In other words, she's doing all this stuff that she wouldn't do with him. You know, the nice guy fiancé that puts her on the pedestal and treats her like the queen, he's getting the bare minimum. But meanwhile, her lover, he's bending her every which way till Sunday. Isn't that interesting how that always works that way? What was the worst was I'm watching them get it on, and I call to see how her day was. She hears her phone ringing and holds her hand up from him to stop giving her anal and answers the call. I don't know how he must have very good cameras to be able to tell that. I asked why she's breathing heavily, and she said she was at the gym working out. As soon as the call is over, she goes right back to doing the dirty. No pun intended. When I got home Friday evening, I ignored her and went right to bed. And early Saturday, got up and went cycling. I was so upset that I didn't even realize that I biked over 50 miles from our apartment. The furthest I'd biked before was 30 miles, but that day I went 105 miles. Getting back absolutely exhausted, I showered. Then she and I went out that evening and had fun with our friends and had a lot to drink. Is it breakup sex when the one you're going to break up with is this oblivious? I was bursting inside. Heartbreak, anger, rage, feelings of betrayal all swirl around my heart and mind. She, who used to be so attentive, was oblivious to all this. It hurt so much because I loved her so much. Again, after all this shit, why isn't this guy confronting her and getting out the door? But, again, we have to question these things, but, okay. And some dudes, they have to go through all this stuff. But you're going to see what he does next, which you're going to see that it's pretty much probably was what led him to this situation anyway. I mean, at the end of the day, she's the devil and a snake, and she's in the wrong. But a lot of times, actions the guys take will then lead a woman in this direction by kissing her ass, treating her like the queen, putting her on the pedestal, all that. He goes on, I finally confided in one of our mutual friends, and he told me that they all knew about it for months. Nice friends, huh? I was finally told they all felt sorry for me. But no one again ever said a damn thing to me, which is why they stopped inviting us out with them. I hadn't noticed it before, but I could look back and see that about 3 months prior, they gradually invited us/me less and less. Yeah, nice friends, huh? So I figured I would try to win her back the next weekend. Win her back. This is the type of crap that a lot of guys do. The woman's doing all this horrible stuff, and they figure they're going to win them back. No. Well, first of all, there's going to be any winning back. She's got to win him back. This is when you bail. End of story. Don't try to win her back and treat her like the queen, treat her like the princess, like she's all wonderful and everything. That's just going to make her resent the guy more because she knows what she's doing. The next weekend, I planned the entire weekend as a complete weekend of spoiling her in every way. Wined and dined, pampering, massages, rubs, and talking to her about future plans, about how much I loved her. I knew I was starting to break through when after her 4th glass of wine, she started to cry. And I could tell the guilt was coming up to the surface. I asked her what was wrong, but she would choke up every time she tried to speak. I then told her that if she did something in her past or was having some kind of conflict in her mind, that she needed to speak with me about it, that I was more than willing to talk with her about it, and if forgiveness was needed, then I was more than willing to forgive her and move on. The only words that came out of her mouth was how much she loved me. It actually hurt to hear that from her, as now I had 4 separate videos of her and the other guy in our apartment getting it on. Over the next 8 weeks of traveling to the Midwest, another 8 weeks here, he's still with her. The trips lasted for would have been 10 weeks. I recorded over 41 hours of her having sex with what I found out was her coworker. She never worked late once while I was gone. Yeah, big surprise. I tried every weekend to be extra attentive, and each week she got more and more distant. What I tell you about him, he's rewarding her bad behavior, and she's getting worse and worse, more and more distant, and all that. Why the hell didn't this guy end it before? After watching this for 8 weeks, I was done, so I devised a 12-step getaway plan. All right, now we're talking. It only took this guy. I can't even do the math on how long this guy has known this was going on before he's taken action to get her out of his life and move on. But, some guys have to go through hell to finally get a fucking clue. And here's this 12-step plan. Number 1, gather evidence. Number 2, get her out the way in order to execute my plan. I scheduled a 2-week exclusive getaway trip for us at an all-inclusive resort in Barbados. She was ecstatic. Then a week before the trip, I claimed I had to back out and told her to take a friend. I knew it was over when she showed no disappointment that I couldn't go. She scheduled coworker to go with her. Anybody surprised there? Number 3, terminate our apartment lease. It would expire 3 days into her trip, and I was the sole signature on the lease. Number 4, find a job in another town. The company I had been assisting in the Midwest had offered me a job with a slight increase in salary. Number 5, find a new place to live. I got an apartment in the above said location. When she was gone, I performed the following. 6, take her to the airport and go back home and pack all her things the same day. 7, get a new phone /number/email and cancel all social media. Number 8, separate us completely in regard to finances. Withdraw all her monies from our joint accounts and then close them. This idiot had a joint account with her. Is he out of his damn mind? He's lucky she didn't clear him out. I told you guys, don't have joint accounts with your girlfriends or fiancés, and if you're going to do it with your wife, have it for exclusively the mutual bills like the mortgage and the rent and that shit. But you have your own account for your own paycheck and do what you want. Just want to point that out here. Next one. I put all her money in an envelope and packed in her things. Had the movers pack all my things up and ship it west. Take all her things to her mother's house 600 miles away. All my fiance's belongings fit in the bed of my F-250 crew cab. Number 11, give her mother the evidence. Number 12, start my new life. I didn't want to do anything that was illegal, so I made sure that nothing of hers was missing. It was so hard to pack all her stuff nice and neatly away. I never cried so hard in my life. I have read so many times on Reddit about significant others saying they will never do it again when caught, but they don't stop. My hope was that she would genuinely confess so we could forgive each other and move on. She never did. Twice she came really close, but her secret was too hard for her to reveal. She's not going to confess, and the only way she would confess is if she got caught, and then she'd be bawling her eyes out and saying, I love you, and the usual a reaction to being caught. And it would happen again down the road. It says, Tuesday morning, I left our apartment north of D.C. for the last time. It took 10 hours to get to her mom's house. What happened when I got there, I was not prepared for. I arrived at her mom's house around 8 in the evening. I figured she'd be surprised to see me since I was coming down unannounced. Since they lived in a gated community, I had to buzz her house from the front gate. So she was waiting for me outside when I drove up. I could tell that she'd been crying when I walked up to see her. I asked her what was wrong, and she hugged me, bawling that she thought her husband was cheating on her with a much younger, skinnier, and prettier woman. Dumbfounded, I just held her for what was probably 10 minutes. She soaked my right shoulder with tears and snot. When she finally composed herself, I asked her if we could go in and talk. We went in, and I asked her where her husband was, and she indicated that he was going fishing with his buddies at a remote cabin an hour away. Then she said he hates fishing. She gave me all the indications that she had picked up on. Apparently it was going on for about a year. So the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree. The daughter takes after the father. So doing a little bit of research, we found a credit card hold charge for a 5-star hotel that was only 20 minutes away. On call later confirmed her husband was in fact there for a 4-night stay, cheating with his mistress. 2 peas in a pod, I said. What? She responded. 2 peas in a pod, I said. Your husband is cheating on you, and your daughter is cheating on me. That's why I came here to drop off her stuff and move on to the new location. I showed her the evidence in a binder on screen captures I had made. After looking at the first 3 or 4 pages, she looked at me dumbfounded. We both hugged and cried for about 30 minutes. At that point, she stopped crying and looked at me and said, "Well, tonight there is nothing we can do about it except for you and I to knock out these 3 bottles of Moscato and fuck in every room in the house." She grabbed 2 wine glasses and a bottle of Moscato wine and walked out to the private pool deck saying, "Are you coming out here, or are you coming out here, or are you going to get fucking revenge?" Now, I won't go into much detail because I don't want to get too blue balls, but that night, for the next 3 days, we fucked non-stop. I put myself in every hole in her beautiful body could offer. I must have come on her at least 25 times in that period. After those days were over, we passionately said goodbye, and I drove to my new destination. She kept me informed as to everything that happened when the ex-fiancé got back. The day the fiancé got back was epic. I canceled my phone the morning of the day she got back, so when the plane landed and she called for a ride, it indicated the phone was disconnected. She apparently had her lover take her home. He dropped her off and left. When she came home to the door, a strange couple, the new tenants, answered the door and she freaked out. I can't tell you how many times she tried to call me because, again, the number was no longer valid. She went to her girlfriend's to stay for a time as the coworker was already married. Anybody surprised there? When she called her mom in a panic, her mom told her that I had come down and dropped off all her things and mentioned that all her money was down here as well, 600 miles away. Her mom didn't tell her that she had fucked me more in 3 days than the fiancé and I had in the last 6 months. But she did tell me that she knew that she was cheating on me. And I said that I had found a new job, place to stay, and a new career far away from her and all the friends that we had. And that her mother was separating from her father due to infidelity. Apparently she cried for days and took a week off from work. But alas, she found comfort in the arms of her married lover. Her mom never let her know where I was at. I completely cut out that part of my life. The only link I had to that old life was the fiancé's mom, and she kept our secret to this day. The fiancé was ghosted the mosted. So there you go, guys. Hands down, the best revenge story, in my opinion, I've ever heard, and certainly the most entertaining that I've ever heard. And again, we can question whether this actually happened or not. Who the hell knows? But nevertheless, it's very entertaining. So there you go, guys. And again, like I said before, you can tell how this guy obviously treated this woman like the queen, his fiancée. Obviously, she was beautiful and sexy, and everything was amazing. And, you know, it's a sad world that you live in where you can be with someone and you really love them and think they're great, and you feel like you click on so many levels, and you want to do nice things for them. You want to treat them like so well and show that how much you care and all that. And unfortunately, that oftentimes with certain women, and in many cases a lot, that kindness will be perceived as weakness. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable. What, they got daddy issues? They got giant, massive egos? They're crazy? Who the hell knows? And that's just what we live in today. It's not every case, but it's a lot. And this guy, and you see what happened to him. And it's a damn shame. But then this guy found out about this stuff, and he kept it going for all this time. It took that long for him to actually do something about it, you know? It's unbelievable. And the part where he actually then went on to try to take her away on the weekend and show how much he cared and loved her. I mean, you don't reward bad behavior. And it's no accident that she started treating him worse when he was doing that, right? So, but anyhow, ending this story with him getting the escape plan, getting the hell out of town, moving on, not telling her what's going on. Awesome. And lo and behold, one thing led to another, ended up banging her mom. Doesn't get better than that. So, again, whether it happened or not, who the hell knows, but it's entertaining as hell. All right, guys, that is it for today. I thought you'd enjoy that on a Friday. Hope you all have a good weekend. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.